The library stood at the edge of the campus, a hulking structure of stone and shadow. It was officially closed for renovations, but for Hannah and Jake, it was the perfect place to cram for finals undisturbed. They slipped through a broken window, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. "Why do we always pick the creepiest places to study?" Hannah muttered, her voice bouncing off the high ceilings. Jake shrugged, adjusting his glasses. "It's quiet, plus no one's going to bother us." They sat up at a large wooden table, the dim light of their lantern casting long, flickering shadows. The library was a labyrinth of shelves and forgotten corners, filled with the musty smell of old books and decay. As they buried themselves in their textbooks, the air grew colder, the silence thicker. Hannah shivered and pulled her jacket tighter. "Did you hear that?" Jake looked up, frowning. "Hear what?" "That whispering. I thought I heard someone." Jake shook his head. "It's probably just the wind. This place is ancient." They returned to their studies, but Hannah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She glanced around, half expecting to see a pair of eyes peering from the shadows. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, a chorus of voices murmuring just beyond comprehension. "Jake, seriously, you don't hear that," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jake sighed, pushing his books aside. "Okay, let's take a break. Maybe we're just freaking ourselves out." They wandered deeper into the library, the lantern's light barely cutting through the oppressive darkness. As they turned a corner, they found a door slightly ajar, a faint light flickering within. "Should we check it out?" Jake asked, curiosity outweighing his caution. Hannah nodded, her heart pounding. They pushed the door open to reveal a small office, cluttered with papers and old photographs. A single candle burned on the desk, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Who would leave a candle burning?" Hannah whispered, her eyes scanning the room. Jake picked up a photograph, his face paling. "Hannah, look at this." The photograph was old, sepia-toned, showing a stern-looking woman in a librarian's uniform. Her eyes seemed to bore into them, a cold, unwavering stare. "That's her," Jake said, his voice barely audible. "That's the librarian who disappeared. They say she went mad, obsessed with some ancient book, and then just vanished one night." Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. "You think she's still here?" Before Jake could answer, the door slammed shut behind them. The whispers rose to a fever pitch, the air growing colder with each passing second. The candle flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. "We need to get out of here," Jake said, his voice shaking. They turned to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. Panic set in as they pounded on the wood, the whispers now a deafening roar. Hannah screamed as she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She spun around to see the ghostly figure of the librarian, her eyes hollow and black, her mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. "You shouldn't be here," the spirit hissed, her voice a raspy whisper that sent shivers down their spines. Jake grabbed a chair and swung it at the apparition, but it passed through her like smoke. The librarian reached out, her fingers brushing Jake's cheek, leaving a trail of frostbite in their wake. "Leave now, or suffer the same fate," she intoned, her voice echoing in the small room. Hannah and Jake redoubled their efforts, finally managing to force the door open. They stumbled out into the hallway, the whispers now chasing them through the darkened corridors. They sprinted back to their study area, grabbing their things in a frantic rush. As they reached the broken window, Hannah glanced back one last time. The librarian stood at the far end of the hall, her eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "Remember, you can't escape the past," she called after them, her voice a chilling promise. They burst out of the library, gasping for breath, the night air a welcome relief. They never spoke of that night again, but the memory haunted them. Every time they passed the library, they could feel her eyes watching, waiting for them to return. And in the silence of their rooms, when the world was asleep, they could still hear the whispers of the silent stacks, calling them back to the library's dark embrace.